What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Overtime Chicks. We are joined by a very special guest today, Liz, who is a contributor to the Winnipeg Sports Talk, and we're so excited to have you on. So, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So, to kind of just get things started for everyone listening, kind of explain your job in hockey because having a job in hockey these days is just so cool. It is so difficult to get one. So, can you kind of just run us through what your role is with the Winnipeg Jets podcast you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I work for a company called Winnipeg Sports Talk. They're local here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and they cover all things sports in Winnipeg. So for the most part, the professional teams here are the Winnipeg Jets and the Manitoba Moose in hockey, so the AHL and the NHL. But then there's also football, some basketball, stuff like that. But here in a lot of Canadian markets, the appetite is pretty strong for Jets content. So Winnipeg Sports Talk goes live every single day on YouTube from 1 to 3 p.m. and talks to all kinds of different guests. And then I do their weekend show. So myself and my co-host Connor, we do a weekend show at 9 a.m. Central every Sunday called Winnipeg Sports Talk Sunday Live, where we talk about the kind of preceding week in Winnipeg Jets hockey. And then I also do post-game shows with WST. So through that, I go to as many games and practices and morning skates as I can to kind of better inform myself for the post-game shows as well as the Sunday show. So that's kind of the gist of what my role is there with WST.
That's amazing. So give us kind of like a rundown of first I want a rundown of your everyday kind of what you do. And then I also kind of am intrigued, what's a day in a life if there was on a game day. So I kind of feel like people want to know about both.
Yeah, for sure. So I am a part-time employee at WST because I have another job as well that gives me some flexibility. I work at a social media agency. So when it's a game day, it kind of depends for me if the game is here in Winnipeg or if the game is away. If the team is away, honestly, over the course of the day, I just listen in to the Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily Show from 1 to 3, kind of mind my own business until game starts. And then when the Jets game is on, I just watch it on cable like everybody else. And then when games are home, things look a little bit different. So depending on what time morning skate is, what my schedule looks like, how well I've organized my week to be able to, take time out of it to go to the morning skates, I'll head down to the Canada Life Center, which is where the Jets play. Usually morning skate is about 40 minutes or something like that. And then afterwards, there is player and coach media. So 2 players and then 1 coach, unless you want to do some kind of one-on-one stuff with the players, but they just get 2 players to do backdrop and then the head coach speaks. So that usually takes up, if I do go to morning skate, about an hour and a half of my morning. So what's really nice about my other job is that, I can work from the rink for the rest of the day if I feel like it, or work from somewhere nearby and stuff like that. And then usually for the actual game, I try and show up anywhere from an hour to, let's be real, sometimes like 10 minutes early and, head in, go through the security entrance, let them know that I'm there, head up to my designated seat in the press box, and then sit, watch the game, take as many notes as are humanly possible, about 800 tabs open on my computer. Game finishes, go down, talk to the players and coaches if you have any specific questions for our content, kind of like anyone who's like a journalist or anything like that. Same sort of vibe, but we just do it in podcast format and stuff like that. So if there's a particular thing that I notice in the game or anything like that that I know I'm going to be speaking about in the post game, I'll usually ask the coach, a couple quick questions, and then we'll kind of go from there.
That's
Well,
so cool.
that's great. So just for anyone that wants to get into hockey jobs and stuff, what kind of do you have any tips and stuff about how you got your job and any advice you can give to people trying to look?
Yeah, for sure. I think that my route, if anyone's interested in kind of a job like mine, should be a pretty encouraging one because I have no formal education background and this wasn't even a real job that I applied for. I started my hockey journey. I'm, from a rural Canadian town, so, grew up playing, loved the sport, everything like that. But everything in hockey for me starts and ends with Twitter. I was on hockey Twitter, before the pandemic and during the pandemic, and I was someone who loved to just talk to anyone and everyone who wanted to talk to me about hockey and, getting connected to people that way, getting connected to the local media that way, different things like that. And kind of through that, got to know a lot of people, got to learn a lot about the sport. I am curious to a fault, so I would ask anyone any questions that I had at all times, made tons of friends, stuff like that. And then kind of as the years went on, I've had a couple of, people would ask me to come guest on their podcast. And then I started doing a post-game show with a network that started actually paying me so I could invest a little bit more time in it, which was fantastic. And then after I got laid off from that job because they cut their post-game shows that they were doing kind of across the country, that was when Winnipeg Sports Talk reached reached out to me. They'd been seeing what I was doing. I sort of knew them informally through being online and stuff like that. And they were like, hey, I wonder if we can make something work here and find a way to kind of get you connected with the channel. And, we tried a couple different video types that I was doing. I was doing some player profiles, different things like that. But then when we started our Sunday show, it really resonated with a lot of people. There's a lot of appetite for content at that time of day, and people really enjoy what Connor and myself have to say. So that's kind of where we're at now. But my degree's in marketing. I went to business school. I did not go to, I don't have a comms degree, don't have any background in journalism or anything like that. Never played hockey. Growing up, I played a sport called ringette. Never played organized hockey. I can skate pretty well because ringette's on the same sheet of ice. So I am the perfect case study of if you just want to do something, why not? Like just do it and kind of keep saying yes when opportunity comes your way. And it's been pretty cool how that's worked out.
Wait, what's the sport that you played? I've never heard of that.
Okay, that's so fun. Ringette, I was actually just talking to someone a couple days ago who lives in I think it was Montana or something, and they'd never heard of it either. I don't know how big it is in the US or a lot of different areas, but it's called ringette, and it's played on the same sheet of ice as hockey. And where I was from growing up, we didn't have girls hockey. Ringette's a girls sport. I don't think they have any organized ringette leagues or teams for boys anywhere that I've ever heard of. I know it's pretty big in Europe as well, but basically you can just picture playing hockey, chop the blade off of your stick. The stick is the same from top to bottom. You tape the top like you would a hockey stick, and then you stick the stick into a ring. So you're skating around with your stick in the ring. It doesn't have offsides, doesn't have icings. It has a couple different rules and stuff like that. If you were watching it, if you didn't know a lot about hockey or ringette, you might think it's kind of the same sport and follows the same rules. It looks very similar. So I can skate pretty well, and I know the sport of hockey pretty well from watching it. And also everyone, when they explain ringette, does so in relation to hockey. They're like, okay, so it doesn't have offsides, but it has this. It doesn't have this rule, but it has that, and stuff like that. So definitely learned a ton. My brother played hockey and watched a lot of hockey growing up and stuff. So yeah, that's my background in ice sports, I guess.
That's so
Wait,
cool.
I've literally never heard of it. It's definitely
You have
not
to Google
a
it
US
later.
thing.
You gotta Google it later.
Wait,
it's so
I'm
cool.
Googling it now. How do you
Yeah,
spell it?
that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
How do you... Oh, I found it.
It's Ringette, and it's
the first thing it says is
fastest
that it
game on
resembles
ice.
ice hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. But do
Yeah.
you have any fun favorite moments or favorite memories so far doing your job that you are currently doing?
Yeah, I mean, favorite memories and moments. I know it sounds kind of corny and tacky, but I love hockey so much. I spend hours and hours every single day. I don't watch movies. I watch hockey games. I don't watch, TikToks. I watch breakdowns of how to do drills and stuff like that. Well, no, I still doom scroll. Let's be real. But I think the biggest thing for me is just the whole idea of, people coming up to you on the street and stuff like that and saying, hey, I really enjoyed this content that you're making. I really enjoyed the specific thing you said, and kind of realizing, and you're like, yes, I know people listen. Every single Sunday, we have all these people in the chat telling us their thoughts, and we have all these people sending us messages afterwards. But I think, the first few times that people would come up to me and recognize me in public and be like, I really enjoyed what you said about this, I was like, that's so crazy, because wow, I knew what I was talking about and I was proud of what I said, and I was putting a lot of effort into that content, but it's always nice to be kind of recognized for that. But in terms of just sort of surreal moments, every single day that I get to do anything in hockey is just so special and great to me. If people follow the NHL kind of loosely, they'll know the Winnipeg Jets were on an 11-game losing streak earlier in this season. So it was a little bit of a slog going to the rink. There wasn't the same vibes around the team as there was last year when they were the President's Trophy winning team that basically had their playoff position secured 15 games into the season.
Yeah,
It's a curse.
It definitely is.
No, for sure. But there is, a couple moments where it's, you're trying to ask a question, you're going to go ask a question, you're like, oh my gosh, they just lost 11 games in a row, and everyone's kind of in it together and stuff like that. So I guess kind of the biggest thing for me, it's not really a story or anything, but just all these people that I grew up watching on TV, whether it's the actual players or, the journalists and the broadcasters as well, because I have been such a hockey fan for so long, and I know so much about kind of the local media scene. People whose work I've been reading my entire life and stuff like that, they're now my colleagues, and now I'll turn to them and say, hey, what did you see on that play, during a whistle and stuff like that. And it's pretty surreal to me to kind of be there. Obviously not on the same echelon as them by any means. There's so much experience up there, and there's so many people that have been, so kind to me all the way through. But it's very cool to be able to kind of ask the person, whose work you used to read after the game for their thoughts during the game. And you're like, wow, this is pretty special. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Okay. You don't have to answer this, but if you had to choose like your favorite player on the Winnipeg Jets, do you have a favorite player or you just love them all?
Ooh, interesting. Okay. So I have been really fortunate. Like they've all been really, really nice to me.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think I'm always kind of inclined to draw more towards the guys who have spent most of their career here just because I'm such a Winnipeg lover, and any of the players who have ever been like super super vocal about how much they love being here, they really resonate with me. I really love them. Obviously, guys like Josh Morrissey and Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck are like kind of the big pillars of the team who have spent their entire careers here, so I have a lot of respect for them. But I guess maybe a story I always like to share is that Jonathan Toews was my favorite hockey player growing up. I used to watch Chicago Blackhawks games because when I was little, the Winnipeg Jets weren't in Winnipeg. They were still in Atlanta. They didn't get relocated here until 2011. So a lot of people in Winnipeg had other teams that they followed and were interested in and stuff like that. And mine was the Chicago Blackhawks. So it's pretty cool that, a player that I used to watch on another team, chose to come to Winnipeg this offseason. And now, we go to the same rink for work. So that's pretty cool. So I guess that will always have a special place in my heart as well. That kind of full circle moment of how important that player was to kind of my childhood as well.
Yeah. And then is there like an underrated player that you think is on the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a couple of the players who like I'm such a nerd for the sport, and like I love watching kind of the little minutia when they're on the ice, little plays, things like that. So in particular, players like Cole Perfetti and Dylan Sandberg, I speak about a ton because I think that if people are just kind of watching casually, they don't always see all of the things that make those players so great. So that's what I kind of try and focus on in my content, is kind of pulling either video or clips or things and saying, hey, look at what this player was doing in this particular play. This is why he's so important. This is why he's so good at what he does. And so those are guys who I think, a lot of my, I don't know if reputation is the right word, but people have become interested in my content, kind of discovering through players like that, where I would talk about them in kind of ways that weren't always hitting the mainstream the way that, if you're watching a national broadcast, like a, Hockey Night in Canada panel that's covering multiple games, they're not going to cover those players in the same way that I will, just because they're trying to do that for every single team across the country that are playing on that night. So I think in terms of underrated, both as people, but also as players, Cole Perfetti and Dylan Sandberg are two guys whose game I really enjoy watching.
Yeah, and I totally forgot to mention this, but I just feel like Winnipeg has like a special place in my heart, and Cole Perfetti and like those guys. It's because when I started working for the Coyotes, Cole Perfetti was literally the first person I interviewed ever.
No,
So
that's
awesome.
I totally forgot about that, and I was like,
Oh my gosh.
And then who was the
That's
other
so
guy?
cool.
It was Blake Wheeler. He played for Winnipeg at the time, but who does he play for now?
Wheeler doesn't play anymore. He's an
He
advisor for the Rangers now, but
No,
But
that's
yeah, so
cool.
them two were the first people I ever interviewed. So Winnipeg
That's
has like
very
a
cool.
special little place in my heart, and I'll always kind of remember that. But
Nice.
I love
my
that.
next place though to go, so me and my dad like to travel for like the playoffs, and like we're trying to hit as many arenas as possible. So our next place we think is gonna be Winnipeg. I mean, let's hope
Maybe
that
not.
they make it. But we were hoping that Winnipeg would be our next place.
But
Maybe next year. Maybe next
Maybe
year. We'll
next
see.
year.
We'll see. Last year was such
Yeah.
a blast. I remember
Yeah.
I was doing for the playoffs last year, I was doing street content for Winnipeg Sports Talk. So I was doing
That's
like
awesome.
interviews and different content like that, which was really cool. So I wasn't, dressing up in a blazer and heels and heading up to the press box for those games. So I ended up actually being in the seats in row 7 in the attack zone for the game where Cole Perfetti scored that goal with 1.6 seconds left on the clock to force overtime in
That
game
was
7 against
so
the Blues,
cool.
which is probably one of my most special hockey memories ever. It
I
was
bet.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was there with my sister, and it was just
That's
really, really cool
amazing.
Yeah,
to get to be part of that, because it's what makes Winnipeg so special, right? Like going into the concourse after that period ended, when everyone thought, obviously everyone thought the season was over, but to me, it felt like there were such larger implications than that as well, just because Winnipeg had been a first round exit 2 years before that, and there was a lot of kind of like politics and logistics around the team in terms of what the future would look like. But then everyone was just so down and out, and then Vlad Nemeskov scores to bring it within one, Cole Perfetti scores, and just the atmosphere was like, I don't know if anything will ever be
unreal.
like that
Yeah.
ever again.
I have to say, like, seeing the photos and videos, it looked so cool. Like, you guys
It was
definitely
unbelievable.
like have a diehard fan base, but you're sitting at 28th in the league right now. Is there anything, I mean, I'm sure there's a few things, but that you think that Winnipeg needs to do better and work on? Or in like also to make
Yeah.
like positive point, like what are they doing well? What are they doing like bad?
Yeah, for sure. I think the big thing for me is that I've been a bit of a proponent for a good chunk of the season that it's probably not the year this year. Just, you could look at the team internally as much as you'd like, but also just looking at the Central Division that they would have to get through. Colorado's having an unbelievable season. Minnesota is having a good season and then traded for Quinn Hughes and now is on fire. Dallas has been kind of a contender perennially for the last few years, and they were the ones who kicked the Jets out last year and stuff. It's a slog in the Central Division. I definitely don't think that the path is there for the Winnipeg Jets. And, especially when the season started off in the way that it did for all four of those teams, I was like, okay, I don't know if this is their year, but I definitely think that there's a lot that they can take from the polarizing differences that happened between last year versus this year. There were a lot of things that, were good about the team last year, but they still had some question marks around them, hence why they didn't make it too far in the playoffs. But in terms of like positives and stuff like that, like I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for some younger players to hopefully get some gains in the back half of the season here, just because the battle for the playoffs is getting tougher and tougher and more uphill by the day.
Getting slim,
No,
man. It's getting
exactly.
scary.
Players like Elias Salmonson, have finally gotten a chance to kind of crack the lineup, show what they can do, and are starting to look really good. So I'm hoping that there's going to be a chance for some other players to come in and sort of earn their keep with the big club, just because Winnipeg is a pretty old team. They're one of the older ones in the league. Definitely lack a little bit in the foot speed department. Then also their depth hasn't necessarily, been a bright spot for the team this year either. So there are spots for young players to come in and claim if they get the opportunities to do so. So I'm really hoping that they do that. I've been a big kind of Manitoba Moose watcher for the last few years. I try and watch as many of their games as possible. So I have a lot of interest in a lot of their players. So I'm hoping that there's an avenue for them to, last year was difficult for anyone to break into the lineup when the team is doing as well as they are. So the hope is that this year for the rest of the season that some players are able to kind of seize opportunities that become available to them.
Yeah.
And the trade deadline's coming up pretty soon. What do you think? Do you have any like predictions on what Winnipeg is going to do? Do you think they're going to buy? Do you think they're going to sell? Like, what do you think they should get done on trade deadline?
Yeah, it's definitely been a big conversation point among the Winnipeg Jets community, just because this is a year, especially in the Eastern Conference, there's a lot of teams that are still in it, and if they choose to make a push, could definitely make their way in. There's really not a ton of teams that are kind of entirely out of it in the Eastern Conference picture, and then in the West, there are more teams that are kind of out of it, but the top dogs are like really, really, really strong, right? Especially in the Central Division. I think there are going to be a ton of teams that are going to be wanting to add players to their lineup this time around, and it'll be interesting to see who ends up wanting to pull the trigger after the Olympic trade freeze about kind of who's going to sell and stuff like that. I think the Winnipeg Jets probably will sell. They have guys whose names have been floating around. They're pending UFAs, guys like Luke Shen and Logan Stanley, who I'm sure would net an okay return. And I think if you're Winnipeg, you should try and recoup as many of your assets as you can on rentals like that. So if I had to guess, I would say that defensemen like Luke Shen and Logan Stanley are going to get moved, and then looking kind of up front, guys like Tanner Pearson, Gus Nyquist. I think that those two in particular, if there is a market for them, Winnipeg should definitely be picking up the phone, and I wouldn't be surprised if those guys were in a different jersey come mid-March. But I think Jonathan Toews is also pending UFA. I don't think that he's going to get moved. I don't think that his goal was to come back and chase a cup with whoever would employ him. I think that he wanted to come back and play for the Jets. So I'm assuming that he's going to stick around. And then outside of that, it'll be interesting to see if they make any bigger splashes, but I think that just knowing what the Winnipeg Jets have kind of typically done and knowing the history of their transactions, I have a feeling they'll just sell off the kind of classic pending UFA guys and then leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay. So other than the Winnipeg Jets, and okay, I guess we know you love the Blackhawks, but other than them, do you have like a favorite team? Or also, I want your Stanley Cup prediction. I feel
Yeah.
like we're kind of like getting there. At the beginning of the season, I put Dallas, but I don't know. That was like before the season even started, though.
But I
So
feel like that's
Yes.
still a good pick.
I know
Still a
they're
good
up
pick,
there,
still a
man.
good pick.
Kind of proud
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
But then like I have like my thing like Jess
You
knows.
still have it up?
Okay, sorry, my room's messy. I have my thing. Where is it? Right there. Wait, my predictions literally on my mirror.
Yeah, we did like a full
Fabulous.
podcast and we were like
have-
putting out our predictions.
I have Winnipeg on there.
Girl. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I.
But okay, I want to hear your Stanley Cup prediction. Your Stanley Cup final prediction. That's what I want.
Okay, yeah. And if you want my like sweetheart team is the Columbus Blue Jackets, just so everyone knows
Okay.
I'm a huge Blue
I like
Jackets
it.
girly, just because I was the world's biggest Pierre-Luc Dubois fan and the world's biggest Patrick Laine fan. So
my
those
God, wait.
teams when
You're
When
gonna
that trade
try to
happened,
retweet
girl,
this.
everyone was hitting my line like crazy because it was like, girl, what is happening right now? Because that one, there weren't like crazy rumors around it until like the day before, and it just got crazy. But so Columbus Blue Jackets are my Pookies, even though Dubois and Line both don't play there anymore. I become like
Yeah.
emotionally attached to all those
Yeah.
players.
Like 5 years ago, literally 5 years ago, before I even like worked for the Coyotes, Patrick Laine liked one of my pictures on Instagram.
Okay,
I won.
Emma needs like her own movie or something. Like the things she just says so casually, I'm like, what
The lore dropping. The lore
Literally,
dropping. I
the
love
lore
it.
drop
Like-
while we're recording, but I'll lore drop.
My Stanley Cup prediction though, I think that I know that everyone's feeling pretty good about Colorado, and it's so hard. Like I think that more so this year than almost any other year. We haven't seen a team kind of go through the regular season with as much dominance as they had, especially in kind of big moments and stuff as well, with as positive of kind of like underlying metrics and things. Like this is a legit dog of a team, so it's kind of hard to count them out. But I'm nothing if not kind of having a flair for the dramatic, so I'm not going to pick them, even though I think they are probably one of the best choices. I think Minnesota, I really think that if they can fix up their center depth a little bit, I am absolutely obsessed with the Quinn Hughes fit over there. And I think that if, Kirill Kaprizov is one of those players that has an interesting perception kind of across the league. I think when he signed a contract as big as he did, everyone started talking about how kind of, overrated he was and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, maybe he's making $1 or $2 million more than you might think he's quote unquote worth if you look at market rates. But like that guy's a dog too. So
yeah.
they've had some great goaltending this year. I really like their coach. So there's a lot to like about them. And I think it'll be fun if they can really start to gel with Quinn and see what he's able to kind of bring to the team. It's been a really positive so far, obviously. So I think Quinn Hughes and the Minnesota Wild are going to get my pick for the Western Conference champs. And I will say, I think that whoever wins the Central wins the Cup. So if it's not them, I think it'll be someone else. And then my Eastern Conference champs, Tampa Bay Lightning. I love the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are so much fun to watch. I am such a fan of what they do to try and pull the best out of their players. Everyone thinks it's a coincidence what guys like, JJ Moser and Darren Radish are able to do. I think it's entirely a testament of what John Cooper is able to do. I think that he's a fantastic coach. So thank goodness that he's kind of repping my boys in the red and white in a couple days over here at Milano, which will be fantastic. I think that Tampa Bay is going to win the East. I think they're an absolutely unreal team. But Minnesota Wild, Colorado Avalanche, whoever wins the Central, that's my cup.
What did you think of the goalie fight the other night?
That was unbelievable. I actually felt like I literally was like, I feel like I'm betraying myself. I was watching the Grammys. I had the Grammys on my TV. I was with my sister, so we
Same.
had the Grammys on. So I wasn't even watching the Stadium Series live, but I had been obsessed with the whole day of watching like, their outfits and stuff. I thought they were crushing it. The pirate theme, like the Stadium Series is fun and a little bit wacky, and I feel like they really were up to the task of making it fun and wacky, and the goalie fight just added to it. I was like, this is so silly. I have kind of, sometimes I'll grandstand about fighting in terms of like watching AHL enforcers fight every 3 games, and I'm like, dude, like your brain's gonna be mush by the time you're 28 years old. Like this is not the path for you. But at the same time, one fight for a goalie, it's the first career fights. Come on, let them do it. I thought that was just an absolute spectacle. It was pretty hilarious.
I loved their outfits. I'm
They
like
were good. They were
obsessed
really
with
good.
all of their outfits.
The Bruins like dressing up as Colonials like made me like die laughing.
It was
It
insane.
was
They
so
did
funny.
so good.
And like
That was
Mitten
like the
had
best
the little
thing I
boom.
saw last week. The worst thing, sorry to like change the topic, but I think like the worst thing I saw last week was Chapel Roan's outfit the other day.
Sorry.
Okay,
So I didn't
I'm like,
see
I
it.
can't even get over that.
She was wearing quite the fit, but then they announced that she was coming out to present an award, and I was like, I feel like she's going to have changed, and she did.
She
She
had
had
to,
changed
yeah,
out of her
she
red
changed.
carpet outfit when she went to go present.
Was it
the
like
Best
really
New
bad?
Artist.
Like
Jessica.
It's a little scandy. It's a little
I didn't see
scandy.
it. I didn't see it.
You gotta look
Just
it up.
look it up. Just look
Okay,
it up right
I'll
now.
look it up.
Okay, look it up after.
Maybe on incognito browser though.
Oh my gosh, so it's bad.
Yeah, it was just like
Okay.
a lot to process. But
I
anyway,
feel like a lot is a good word. I wouldn't say bad. I just think a lot. Yeah.
yeah, very
Okay.
bold, very bold. But yeah, so I think Boston really won with their outfits on Sunday.
At least you won that. Okay.
Yeah. Oh my god, I know.
'Cause- But anyway, we have a game for you if you're down.
Oh my gosh, I'm always down for a game. I love
Okay.
games.
So it's chirp or compliment. So we're gonna just go back and forth and give you a topic, and you're gonna either chirp or compliment.
Okay.
Emma, you can start us off because she made up this game.
Okay, so would you rather chirp or compliment Toronto Maple Leafs? And you have to chirp them or compliment them. You have to come up
Okay,
with a chirp.
so You're putting me in a very easy
I'm putting
position
you on
here
the
because
Yeah,
yes.
this is
I
easy.
I
will
know.
chirp them till the
Thank
cows
you.
come home. Fun fact about me is one of my proudest accomplishments is the fact that I have a perfectly curated Twitter feed that I don't get any Leafs content whatsoever because I've muted everything to do with their best players, their names, everything like that, just because I don't want that on my timeline. So
Thank
I have another
you.
Twitter account.
See,
Like I have
okay.
my
Favorite
podcast Twitter
person
account when I
now.
actually need news and stuff like that. But for when I am trying to protect my own peace and, you know, see the tweets that I want to see, I don't want to see anything about the Toronto Maple Leafs. So yeah, I am a big Toronto Maple Leaf hater. That is something that as you know, a
Yeah,
Winnipegger
you
and
fit
stuff.
right in.
So chirp, chirp, chirp. I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, we're not big fans of them either, so I love that. Next one, Brad Marchand.
Ooh, this is a fun one. I'm gonna compliment Brad Marchand just because I think that he embodies everything that is good about this game. Where you know you can be good at hockey and you can do all these other things as well. You know, you can be a good teammate, you can be a good leader, and you can be a pest, you can be a bug, and all this different stuff. I can't stand players that have guaranteed roster spots because they're, you know, quote unquote enforcers, or they are, you know, guys. It's like, oh, he's a pest, he's in your kitchen, all this different stuff. I'm like, dude, if he's bad at hockey, like I don't really want him to be on my team right now.
Yeah.
I
Right.
love players who are both good at hockey and super, super annoying. So glad that Tom Wilson is coming to Team Canada, stuff like that. I love players like that who are who can definitely talk the talk and walk the walk. So he's gonna get a compliment from me.
That is
But
amazing to hear.
yes, he's our favorite
Brad
player,
Marchand is
so
our favorite player.
we love
Okay,
that.
I love it.
Okay.
Amazing.
Next we have Vegas Golden Knights.
Ooh, okay. There's also gonna be another easy chirp for me. I will say for the most part, honestly, like I feel like any team you might give me other than like the Columbus Blue Jackets, I might even chirp the Winnipeg Jets at this point, just with how the season's going.
Yeah,
Vegas is up there in terms of the chirpable ones if we had to
Yeah.
rank them all, just because yeah, Winnipeg Jets, the best season that they've ever had since they came back in 2011 was 2017-2018. They were cup favorites as they made their way through the playoffs. Them and Nashville were the best teams in the league, and that second round they played against each other, went to 7 games, and it was just unbelievable, must-see TV. And then the Vegas Golden Knights just crushed the 2018 Winnipeg Jets' dreams that year. So the hatred started from that point on, and then yeah, they just really haven't done a single thing that makes them, you know, come back into my good books, you know,
Yeah.
on the ice or off the ice. So they get a massive chirp from me.
yeah. I mean, I agree with that one. But next one, analytics people on Twitter.
You.
Yeah.
So that's a compliment from me. I literally, my most used Google Chrome tab is Advanced Hockey Stats, Patrick Bacon and Jay Fresh's website. I'm a huge natural stat trick girly. Literally, people will send me messages all the time being like, what is this wacky graph that I saw? You know, Ineffective Math and Micah McCurdy has these crazy visualizations that don't make a lot of sense to the common eye, and I don't even get them all. I love, love, love hockey analytics. People on Twitter, if you're like one of the like OG hockey analytics bros, like you have a special place in my heart for sure. But I definitely would toss in a quick chirp to the people who kind of throw up a JFresh card who don't always understand what the JFresh card is talking about. But I am a huge fan of the JFresh card because I think it's important to incorporate more than just regular box score stats into how we talk about players. And I think that he's a great gateway to doing that. So for the most part, it's going to get a massive compliment from me. I think that hockey analytics are the best part of the modern game. It's so much fun to talk about. So anyone who's on Twitter talking about it, it's my friend.
Here's
Exactly.
I have an issue though, because you know Frank Cervelli?
I do.
So somebody made a like account and it's like they copied his profile photo, like they copied his like name, and I
Was
always
it
fall
Frank
for it.
Cervelli? Frank
I think because
Cervelli.
I
I think I
always
see
fall
Frank
for
Cervelli
it.
all the time.
And like he'll like tweet
That's
things
so
out being
funny.
like, say like Brad Marchand to the Leafs, and I believe it. It's verified, and I'm like, and I look so stupid. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what happened? And then I'm
Modern
like,
verification.
You need to
where
just
anyone
block
can just
it.
buy it.
yeah,
So
I'm
bad.
like,
So
I
bad.
know.
it's
Anyone can be verified now.
that. Yeah,
You
that's
just have
so
to pay for
terrible.
what is it, like $15, $8, $5? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really not that expensive. So really
Yeah,
anyone can do
anyone
it.
can
It's
literally
just
get it.
terrible.
yeah, it's odd. I don't like it.
Okay. Next chirp or compliment, NHL refs.
Ooh, okay. You know what? I think that I am actually going to give them a compliment here just because I think that for the most part, when people start talking about the refs, oftentimes it makes me mad because context is always super important. And people start talking about when a ref wins or loses a team a game. I get that it can happen, especially in a specific moment, but I think that people, when it's their job to analyze the game or talk about it and stuff like that. I think you miss the forest for the trees if you try and talk too much about the reffing, because you need to talk about the controllables, what was happening with the team that you're covering, that you're talking about and everything. I try not to talk about refs as much as I possibly can, just because I think that at the end of the day, I'm a true believer that they are equally bad for everyone. So if it's an equal, variable here, then you can't complain about it to the degree that I think most people do. So I'll give them a compliment. They're out there trying to do their jobs and stuff like that. And I know they get a lot of flack, and I'm sure that this is probably, if you were to do this question with 100 other people, you'd get 100 people saying chirp. So I'm gonna go compliment today.
Feel like you need kind of like the background, like the behind the scenes with them as well, because like you have to think about like it's so fast paced. They're doing like
So fast.
and
Yeah.
like
It's
they
so
are doing
fast.
such like I feel like they do a pretty good job. Like with it being
Yeah,
so
and
fast paced, trying to follow
yeah.
everything, looking back at the data, follow all this stuff. And I just feel like they don't get enough like support,
Yeah.
just from like us, like people like us, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
for sure. It's
But
kinda like customer service where it's like, when people
yeah,
only call to give you feedback when you've done a bad job, like, people only talk about them when they call a bad game as opposed to when they
yeah.
call a good game. I know that it's their
Exactly.
job to call a good game, so I get it, but you're totally right, the fast-paced nature of the sport, I just feel like can't be understated. When people are like, "This was a knee on knee," and they have to show, like, 8 different angles in slow motion, I'm like, "Yeah, how was he
Yeah.
call that if that's how many it took for you in this
Well,
particular
and
Exactly.
moment?" Like,
we have, like, so many different angles, like, they're literally on the ice, like, with them. So,
yeah,
like,
no,
some things
exactly.
may look different rather than, like, our angle on the TV when we can literally see, like, the whole ice. So I agree
Yeah.
with that one.
And it's stressful too. They're
Yeah.
stressed out, man.
I mean, sometimes I hate them, but it's like
Yeah.
For sure, and sometimes
As a
they have
fan,
a say
yes,
in a game that
sometimes
they
I hate
shouldn't have a
them.
say in and stuff, I
yeah.
totally get it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so then the last one, your biggest rival team.
Okay.
Toronto. Is
Yeah.
that your
Yeah,
big
like, I mean, like,
Yeah.
if you're like me personally, like, my emotional rival team would definitely be Toronto or Edmonton. I think to me they're equal parts. Just I can't stand them just because, especially as someone who loves and cares about Winnipeg so much and thinks that there have been so many interesting storylines in and around the Winnipeg Jets, for however many years. You go watch like, any type of national coverage, whether it's like a regular news outlet or an actual sports outlet, and it's like, oh my gosh, Kyle Connor scored 3 goals, how fantastic. But everyone take a look. Connor McDavid changed his skate lace colors today.
Yeah.
Let's talk to him about that. And then, and it's kind of
And you're
like,
just
Yeah.
like,
I'm
what
just,
the heck?
I'm so over it. Like,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, like, it would take a lot for me to actually dislike Connor McDavid. I think he's so good for the game, and I think he's just such an awesome player to watch. And, also the sky is blue. Like, that's not an innovative take, but it does get a little bit annoying when we have to watch 4 minutes of his post-game presser when it's like, oh, by the way, the Ottawa Senators won 8-0 tonight. Let's move on. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. I
agree.
know
That
exactly what you mean.
yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I could go on a rant, but okay.
Can
Yeah,
I? But I'm just gonna stop right
just
there.
gotta stop me 'cause
I think fine, really quick. Connor McDavid is a great player. Don't get me wrong, but I think his sportsmanship needs a tiny bit of work.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting.
here's okay, I might as well just say something. But
Let's hear
so
it.
I just don't like how, like 2 years ago, well, 1 year ago, he was like, "Cup or bust, cup or bust. You lost the cup 2 years in a row." And I totally get it. Like, it's one thing because he does have loyalty to his team, which I love, but it's like, don't say cup or bust if you're not gonna follow through with it. So
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents on that.
He also gets a lot of
Pretty
media,
close.
but like I
Yeah.
could see why.
Yeah.
Like he's a good
No, for sure. And like
Yeah.
you have to, follow the media to where the demand is. I totally get it. And like,
totally.
in terms of pandering to the Edmonton or Toronto markets, like they do make up the largest proportion of Canadian sports fans. Like I get it. I totally get
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
it doesn't change the fact that I am who I am. I live where I live and I cover the team that I cover. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I think that we should be
True.
talking about Connor Hellebuck a little bit more. He's the first goalie to win the
Love
Hart and
him.
Carey Price. Like,
I
come
think
on.
he's I think he's from
let's
my
start talking.
hometown. Because I'm pretty sure he's from my hometown. I
Mhm.
know that. But
Yeah.
Nice.
that's all
There
I'm
you
gonna
go.
say while we're recording.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But no, yeah, because Connor McDavid, he's a good hockey player, gotta respect him there, but obviously there's some things that we just don't agree with. But Connor Hellebuck, before we let you go, do you think he's gonna be the starting goalie for Team USA? Because I've been hearing mixed things.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think for the most part, my guess around the kind of mixed things. I understand people are stats comparing from this year and talking about, Connor Hellebuyck's playoff performance, stuff like that. I think just based on everything we know about the similarities between the Four Nations rosters and the Olympic rosters in terms of the decision making, and B, just kind of what this player has on his resume. They're going to start him in game one. I think they have to. I think that that's the plan for everyone involved. I think that, people are always looking for storylines and things to talk about in and around the team. When some guy from Team Canada has a little cough, everyone's like, who is going to be his replacement, right? Like, people like to look
so
for
true.
stories and stuff. And so I think that that's one that is worthy of talking about, but I think it's a little bit blown out of proportion. I would be shocked if Jake Oettinger started game one. I would be. I wouldn't be shocked if, Connor Hellebuyck has a bad game or two. You don't get a long leash in a tournament like this. So that's one thing that the U.S. definitely has going for them, is they have a really, really strong group of goaltenders. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see what happens, but I think he gets the crease for game one.
Will say I feel like some people are a little bit worried because I feel like Hellebuyck kind of has a track record of letting the stress kind of get to him and stuff. Like people just say he's a completely different goaltender in playoffs than he is in the actual season. Do you think this stress is kind of like going to get to him during this, or you think it's going to
Yeah,
be fine?
I have some takes on that for sure. I think that that was a huge narrative around Connor Hellebuyck going into
Yeah.
this year's playoffs, and it made me mad just because you look at kind of the series that everyone talks about how big of a quote unquote flop he is or whatever, and like it's like over the course of 5 games the Winnipeg Jets will have scored like 7 goals or whatever. It's like, okay, so he let in 2 goals and his team scored 1. Like, I don't really understand why this year honestly fed the narrative more than anything else to me. The away games against St. Louis were really tough to watch, but even that, I'm obsessed with shot tracking, and if you look at the shots that he was getting in those games, they're very different than shots he'd been facing in the games leading up to that and stuff like that. The layered screenshots are a very different beast than what he'd been facing, so there are lots of layers to that. I'm a Connor Hellebuyck believer. I think he's a really fantastic
Me
goaltender,
too.
so I definitely understand why people have reservations, and I do think that at this point in his career he does have to prove that he can, as opposed to prove that he can't in those big games, just because of kind of how it's been. But he was really good in the Four Nations for Team USA, and in the Winnipeg Jets series against Dallas, like, look, I know that things didn't go their way, but there was a lot of other stuff that didn't go right for Winnipeg. I thought Connor Hellebuyck really did pick it up in that series. So he's still coming back from knee surgery from this year. He was out until mid-December, so he hasn't looked 100% his same self, in my opinion, since his return in December. So definitely some questions in and around there. But in terms of, is the moment going to be too big for Connor Hellebuyck, I really want to say no, but I do think that we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah,
Completely
I
agree with you. And I will say the first U.S. men's hockey game for the Olympics is at 3:10 Eastern time on February 12th, and it's against Latvia. So it's
Ooh.
the prelim game. So yeah, I feel like obviously we all can agree that the top 3 teams are going to be Canada, Sweden, and US, and they're all in a separate group. So I think so they will not play each other in the prelims, but they'll play each other in the quarterfinals and semifinals, whatever, and so on. So I'm really
Really exciting.
excited. I don't know when Canada's first game is. I didn't get that far on the schedule
I
earlier.
don't remember. It's against Czechia on the Thursday, whichever. I guess that'd be the 12th.
Yep. Okay,
It's
then on
like
the
at
12th.
9:30 in the morning. I think they play on
Yeah,
Thursday.
probably
9:30.
something like
9:30
that.
Central. So
Yeah.
whatever
Wait,
that
give
is.
us your prediction on who you think's gonna take home gold.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this one I think that, like, I have to, in terms of, like, where my heart truly, like, I have to go Team Canada. I think that
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like, goals win you hockey games, and they have a forward core that I think is just out of this world. No one touches their center depth. I think they have a lot of different options, and they ended up winning the Four Nations, but I know that that's kind of, it was a 1-goal game. Like, it was pretty neck and neck with Team USA, and so I think that, like, all that's to say, I do think that Team USA is going to face Canada in the gold medal. I would be
Yes.
shocked if someone else did pull through. It'd be cool if someone did, if someone gave someone a run for their money, but I think these are the two powerhouses. But I think that Canada at the Four Nations, there are 2 very similar rosters here, so that's why I'm kind of going comparisons, similar coaching, similar deployment I'm expecting. And, they never really figured out Connor McDavid with the Four Nations. He kind of didn't do a whole ton. So I think that knowing that they were able to win and stuff, and that I thought, in my opinion, a lot of the players on Team USA were quite good, and a lot of players on Team Canada were as well. But knowing that you still kind of have the I can't even speak, Connor McDavid wildcard, guys, we have too many Connors in my market. My
Yeah.
co-host is named Connor Hellebuck, and Kyle Connor, so it's like first name, last
Oh my
name,
gosh.
too many Connors. But
Wow.
Connor McDavid not being fully unlocked for Four Nations makes me feel like there's definitely a lot more there. I'm really hoping to get him see him play a couple shifts with Macklin Celebrini and maybe get a little bit more out of him and stuff like that. So I think that Canada at the end of the day has those massive difference makers that they're going to be able to pull it off. But I also just think that in good conscience, I wouldn't be able to give the nod to Team USA.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
feel like
Like
I
you
should
kind of
revoke
have
my
to say
passport.
Canada.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I totally get that.
I think it's like one of those things where it's like close enough that you can, like, if you have emotional investment in either team, it's close enough that if you say the one that you truly want to win, no one's going to be like, oh, you're so washed. As opposed to like, if you're like, I really think Team Latvia is going to do it. It's like, hey, man, I don't know if that's entirely the case. I know
Yeah.
that you want it, but I don't know. But on paper, I think that both the Team USA and Team Canada are just insane rosters. And I'm thinking that Winnipeg's offense, oh my gosh, this is quite the day for me. Canada's offense is going to be the difference maker, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I would be very, very surprised if the finals were not US and Canada.
Same.
So,
And
yeah,
I feel
I'm
like I
excited.
want that. It's so exciting, and it's like,
If we go through this tournament and we don't get to watch them play against each other, I will feel robbed. I will feel I'll be upset.
same. Yeah, I'll actually be kind of mad, to be honest. with you.
I might shed a tear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll cry. But okay, well, that's all that I've got.
Is there anything else you want to talk about, or we kind of just that's it?
Well, I mean, I always like to plug my podcast because I feel like
Yeah.
just based on everything I know about you guys and what you do, there could be some kind of crossover there. Obviously, I kind of gave the lore on my, kind of emergence into the space and how kind of unconventional it was and stuff. And I'm very much just kind of, fearless is the wrong word because I'm terrified of everything, but I'm a yes man, and I'm very like delusional too, where I'm like, I could do this, why not, sure, let's do it. And it's got me pretty far, but I feel like in hockey it can be a very intimidating space for women, and there's so many times that, whether it's things that people say or opportunities that don't exist, that it's so easy for women to not be involved in hockey, whether it's working in hockey as fans, stuff like that. So I started a podcast, it's called Shell Chit Chat, and what I do is every single episode I bring someone on and we build a resource together. So every episode is titled to something. So if you're trying to get into the freelancing world, I have an episode called, how to navigate the industry in freelancing, and I talked to Sarah Sivian, who's done freelancing kind of for a lot of her career, and talking about how to protect yourself and how to make it lucrative and all these different things. And so every single episode of Shell Chit Chat is a how-to. Sometimes it's on the fan side of how to feel more welcome in the game and all these different things. Other times it's pretty career focused, where we dive into all kinds of different topics to try and help women feel like they belong, because they do. And even if the world doesn't always make you feel that way, the powers that be, the important people, the ones whose opinions actually matter, they want you here. So we try and build resources together to make that happen. So my podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, everything like that. And yeah, it's I'm pretty proud of it, just because I think that it's kind of innovative in the way that it doesn't the episodes don't expire. They're not talking about who scored a goal in the second period of the Winnipeg Jets game last night. They're pretty evergreen, hence the color of the show. It's all green themed, and that's also my favorite color. But yeah, it's very important to me, just because I think that a lot of people have asked me for advice. I've asked a lot of people for advice over the years. So kind of getting that all in one place where people can sort of learn on their own terms is very important to me. So yeah, if anyone ever wants to check it out, it'd mean the world to me.
Yeah,
We'll check it out,
definitely.
girl.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it
Thank
out
you.
too. But yeah, definitely tune into that. Do you post every single week?
Yeah, so I've kind of been batching the show in seasons, just because during the hockey season things get so crazy, and I feel like I can never commit to weekly anything. And I'm also a strong believer that I take so much pride in the value that my show offers, and so I'm not going to force it ever. That I'm like, if I have to get an episode out today, I'm not doing that. So I post on social media, mostly on Instagram. It's very easy to find. I kind of go in seasons and batches, so when I'm putting out a new season of the show, I tell everyone how many episodes it's going to be, when they're going to be posted, and everything like that. And the seasons kind of come and go. So we've wrapped up 2 seasons. We're actually celebrating the first anniversary of the podcast is on National Women and Girls in Sport Day, which is February 5th. So that was when I launched the first ever episode of it. So in the last calendar year, we've done 2 seasons. And you guys can be the first to know that I actually am going to be teasing a 3rd season really, really soon, like maybe this month.
That's so
So
exciting.
exciting.
Yeah, very, very
Congrats.
excited that, again, the only reason I'm ever putting out a new season is if I feel like I have something of value to say. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited about the guests that we have lined up and what we're going to be building for season 3. So I'm really excited.
Wait, I'm
Love
excited.
that. Yeah, I was just
I
looking at your
wanna know now.
Instagram. It's
I
so
am so
cool.
excited.
Also, like, your theme on Instagram, like, that it all looks so put together, I love it.
Thank you
I was just,
so
like,
much.
stalking it, but
I have a lot
yeah.
of fun with it. It's just a girl, her water bottle, and a Canva account. Like it's me against the world, man. Like we
Love
have
Canva.
some fun
Me
with it.
too.
So I'm very fortunate that I think what's kind of gotten me to where I am, and a lot of the things that have helped me build my network, my connections, my portfolio of work. You know, it's been kind of say yes to things, go with the flow, do what people ask you to do. But Chell Chit Chat is something that I wanted to build, and I wanted to do it on my own terms, in the way that I wanted, in the way that I thought would put value into the world, value that I wish I had gotten from other people, that I did get from other people, that I'm able to kind of share with others and stuff as well. Yeah, everything about it is very me. It's what I want to be doing. It's on my own terms. I don't feel nothing is forced. Nothing is, trying to hit quotas or check boxes of how many posts I need to get done. It's all, when I feel like there's something good to say, I say it. And so that's why I'm very proud of kind of what I do there.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's the way to do it if you love what you do. Makes it so much easier, but thank
Exactly.
you so much for coming on. We had so much
Yeah,
fun.
thanks for having me. It was a blast.